and welcome to episode 6 of the China Experts. This is an interview series where we are interviewing China people who've had extensive journeys in their careers, as well as in their own personal lives, living and working in China. And today, I'm very lucky to say I've got a friend, as well as a business partner, Manfred Steinkellner from Steinkellner Global Search, who is a partner of Woodburn Accountants and Advisors, not a client, meaning that we cross-refer clients, we co-market, we do a lot of webinars together, and we work to be able to provide added value services to companies where we lack or Manfred lacks. And today I thought it'd be super interesting to have Manfred share his China journey. What have his successes been, what have his challenges been, and where does he see the future of his company go in the next 6 to 12 months. So the idea, Manfred, also is hopefully in 6 to 12 months, we'll revamp this conversation to see, where business is, how things might have changed based on the global climate, what's happening in China and whatnot.
That does sound good, Christina. We just kind of have these conversations rolling every 12 months, and
exactly.
Just be a bit more careful in terms of uttering our business intentions.
Exactly. So, Manfred, maybe you can introduce the company, a little bit about yourself, and what you do.
Yeah. So thank you very, very much for having me, Christina. It's a pleasure to be here. But as always, it's a big pleasure to be in a conversation with you. My name is Manfred, or in Chinese, Shi Le Yan, and my China journey started back in, I think, 21st of January 2003. I touched down ground in Beijing. I still remember the guys moving away the snow with the kind of, the old sort of, how do you call them? The little besen that they used to have back in the time. And many things happened in between, but I guess we'll touch base on that kind of in the conversation. What do I do? My company is focusing on finding the right people. That could be the right, for example, general manager for your organization in China or in Europe or the USA. It could as well be the right plant manager for a facility in Kunshan, in Suzhou, or in Dongguan, or it could be kind of the right sort of operational people that you need, and where our team in Shanghai kind of steps in. That's what we do in a nutshell.
Fantastic. So when did you establish your business, Manfred?
I established my business back in 2010, so that's about 12 years ago now.
And so obviously establishing a business, originally your business was centered and focused on China. Now you've expanded more internationally, but I think there's still a piece of your heart that is with China.
Oh, absolutely.
In terms of helping foreign investors find the people. Can you explain a little bit the journey that you had in your company's development? And obviously, as you know, everyone loves to hear the war stories. What challenges did you incur along that way?
So look, I started my company quite early on in my life, and back at that time we were still doing a lot of project management, essentially, which was good in a couple of reasons. On one hand side, Shanghai is one thing. Whereas if you go out to smaller places, if you go out to rather rural areas or even to construction sites, you see a different part of China. So be that my very, very first trip to China, to northeastern China, to Qiqihar, or then later on in that first couple of years of the company, going to where stuff was being built, kind of, I guess, was always on one hand side simply exciting and thrilling to me. On the other hand side, it also helped to kind of appreciate, that bandwidth that I think we all like and cherish in China, that there is a lot to China. It's not just Shanghai, it's a huge and it's a vast place. Back in those days, now we're talking to 2010, and a couple of years later on, so much was happening. Traveling was still easy, going back and forth extremely frequently. Essentially, what we did back then kind of was firefighting. Whenever you had a very large scale project, and all the European organizations very quickly had large scale projects back then, because you build something in China, it's double or three times bigger than you build something in Europe. And so normally when they kind of started to get stuck, then they still tried a little bit for themselves. And then all the red flags started to go on. Then management had to do something. And this is kind of where I partially came in as translator, I partially came in as project manager, I partially came in as firefighter. And I think that was just...
And potentially therapist.
There was always a fair share of hand holding involved and a drink or two. And I think when you come in from that angle, how do I put it? There's a couple of things you kind of see where people and organizations have taken the wrong turn, right? You notice that, or not, I mean, it's obvious you notice that you're stuck, but you then somehow also ask, why are we actually stuck, right? And something that I always found extremely interesting and intriguing is two things. The first thing is that if the right people don't talk with the right people, then it doesn't work. If you have the electrician talk with the caretaker, that doesn't make sense. Even if the electrician talks with the mechanics, it still doesn't make sense. You want to have the electrician talk with the electrician. You want to have the doctor talk with the doctor. And it's these sort of communicational, maybe you could even call it, basics, that very often, that it just didn't work. No bad intentions, neither from the Chinese end nor from the European end, but they didn't work. However, if you don't notice, you can't fix it. And normally most of my clients, they didn't notice. And that kind of brings me to the second thing, in China, I always call it the Mallorca effect, after this island in Europe where the Europeans kind of go and behave in a very different way than they would normally behave at home. I've seen so many people do stuff in China that they would just never do at home, think about doing at home, or dream about doing at home. But then once they're in China, it's very normal, You just do things where you say, why would you do that? And it's this sort of, kind of spiral dynamics where, there's 30 Chinese people in the room, there's a couple of tired Europeans in the room. And that's that sort of dynamics that kind of whips up strange thunderstorms that kind of come out of thin air, and that very often are kind of based on, I don't know, one or two or three sentences being extremely misunderstood and being extremely wrongly translated, so to speak.
So what challenges, so then you went from the project management, how did that develop into people?
Well, in project management, you are running a team of people. And early on in project management, myself, my clients, and everybody around us, we always had the same issue. We had the same issue of, we don't have the right people here. We would want the right people here. And I kind of looked around, and what I found a lot was people who could give us advice, people who said, I know what you need. What I did not find a lot was people who actually could help us in building that team and in finding those right people. However, what really then kind of triggered me switching into the executive search field, or the people field only, was that at the end of 2000, or not at the end, in the middle of 2015, my second child was born. And that was the year when I was kind of going on a routine of 1 week China, 1 week Europe, 1 week China, 1 week Europe, 1 week China, 1 week Europe. And if you fly out with the same stewardesses and you return with that same team,
something's wrong.
Something's wrong. Because you've just been there for only 4 days,
Yeah.
Why do you even think that this makes sense.
Mm.
You know, it might make sense to close a deal, but it definitely doesn't make sense, nor as a project manager, nor as a firefighter, nor in any case. You know, it's funny for the people who've never been there, but for those of us who've been there and done it, it's a surefire telltale sign that you need to change something.
Absolutely.
And so after kind of Paul, my second child came to, Julie gave birth to him. I still went back to this mode, I think for, I don't know, another month or two. And then at the end of the year, I decided I need to change, you know, simply 80% a personal motivation. And roughly at the same time, actually, if you remember, then Semperit came along, my first client in the executive search field. And they said, look, you know, we need a production manager. I think it was at the time in Tire Zhuang. And that was then also the time when, you know,
We started working.
We did our first collaboration in that very field. Yeah.
Yeah. So obviously then working from Austria and building up this business that is very China centric, what challenges have you incurred along the way? And I think it's really fitting to have this conversation today where we are seeing a lot of expats moving out of China, COVID reasons, Shanghai lockdown reasons, political reasons, whatever else, just in some instances, pure tiredness. And the big question that they are raising is, how do we still manage operations in China by not being on the ground? And I, similar to you, Manfred, I'm not on the ground in China either. So it's, I think we've experienced this together in terms of how to manage it. But, you know, let's start off with worst, you know, the bad stories. What are the challenges that you've incurred or still incur today?
When you look at the logo at my top right corner, where it says Steinkellner Global Search, on the left side, you know, you see that logo of ours, which is, you know, based on the Chinese chops. You have the red kind of edge around it, and you have that bridge in the middle. So what I always did, what I still do, what I still love to do, is to build these bridges. Now for the bridge, as you also see in the logo, you know, you need one side kind of in China and one side in Europe. The weaker one side is, the stronger or the more load, you know, the other side kind of needs to carry. If we use that as an analogy, you and me, you know, we've been in China for a while. We've lived there. We know the place. So the people I kind of, you know, started to onboard at the early stages, that was heavy lifting. That was extremely heavy lifting. Different reasons, different things. On one hand side, I guess, when you start, you might not be 100% sure whom you need. You know that you need to be there. You know that you need to start to assemble a team. And yet, you know, then there is that impatience or that not knowing, you know, if I wait, do I find somebody better? You know, the analogy is lacking, but still, you know, it's like looking for your wife. You've got one, you think she's great. And yet there's another one who's also apparently great, you know? Do you stick or do you switch? What do you do? Now, we've both made that choice. But if we kind of go back 20 years in our lives, and, you know, we could stick or we could switch, right?
Sure.
And I guess that is something that is, we've had a couple of iterations there. Kind of, if I do a fast forward now, one of our key project managers in the China team, her name is Ru. She's been educated in Germany. She's worked with Bosch. She speaks German. So obviously, you know, kind of, she's the one taking care of the operational roles. She's an extremely good project manager. We found her through iterations, you know. because I've built the organization completely remotely, I've built it mainly on trust. I've built it mainly on people that want to work with me and that are, willing kind of to do the job. So in that sense, I think sometimes, we might have sacrificed a little bit on terms of the ideal profile. And if you do that, you need to balance. So for example, one of the first kind of people I had in China, Kevin, he didn't speak English. So, just orchestrating team meetings becomes a bit, as we would say in Chinese, mafan, it's how do you do it? How do you translate? It's
there's that extra work that has to happen, right?
Yes. And I've been in that bridging role too long that, for example, Kevin then said, Manfred, it's just you can translate. I've been in that bridging role too long, that understanding that if me kind of being the one who's building the company and who's kind of got the CEO title below, obviously the team will listen very differently to what I say. And even if I am the translator, their perception is that it's me saying it. So, it's all these nuances that if you've been in China for a while and if you know kind of how that the communication patterns look like and where the troubles come from, you start paying attention, or put differently, maybe you see ghosts where there are none. You get very careful because you say, wait, let's not too fast, too quickly to something. Let's say what we're talking about. Let's talk, very slow, very step by step, because, misunderstandings get created so quickly and nobody notices.
And so easily. Yeah. I mean, that just reflects back on what happened personally to me when I first arrived in China, also in 2003. The first employee that we hired, was somebody from the Big Four. And the thought back then was, how could you go wrong with somebody from the Big Four, right? But what we didn't realize was taking somebody from a Big Four to a startup is going to be such a different work environment for them. Being a team of two in a tiny 8 square meter office, having to do everything and being flexible enough and mindset wise to do everything that you're required, and that there's nobody to delegate anything to, was very, very difficult. But then you go into a mindset of, okay, I know she's not fitting, but right now is not the time to rock the boat because there is no boat. We're building the boat.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
So you're sort of like, okay, I know that it's not a right fit.
I gotta roll with her.
And I always say this by never having gone much into detail, but when you get into a situation like this, when you have people on your team who are not the right fit, you as the CEO, like you said, you as the managing director, not only are you doing translations, but you're also making up excuses because you want everyone to be happy, and you're keeping like a blind eye on things that are going on. But more importantly, because of that, you're spending over 50% of your time on HR issues versus actually on the business. And like I said, there's no boat to rock because it's not been built yet. The foundation hasn't even been built yet. And you have to focus on that. You can't focus on the HR issues, right?
I see it at the moment. We're now at a kind of team strength of 14 people, where we have kind of one dedicated resource in Europe and one dedicated resource in Asia, which helps us kind of to expand the team. And having that kind of function, having that clarity that, if you need to look for new team members, you can go to that person and you do know that that person, point A, understands you, point B, has got the resources or will clear the resources to do that, kind of is something that at that point of time early on, neither did I have the understanding, nor did I have the team size, nor did I have the financial flexibility to operate in that way. Once you have that, you can also, you can start acting on it. As you said, when you're building the boat and there is just two of you, there is so many reasons that they kind of speak against making that change. And, yet at the same time, and that is also something that how do I put it? On one hand side, we love and we cherish doing it. On the other hand side, we also have respect and sometimes even, yes, at least respect on it, finding that first person. Because finding that first person is really setting the tone in the conversation.
Sure.
You find somebody that you can, communicate and dance great with, super. You find somebody where every communication is a disaster, not so super.
Yeah.
But again, I've got big respect of that first person, mainly due to what you have just said and also what I have gone through. That takes a bit of patience. It takes a lot of experience. And again, I come back to the logo. It takes the mindset of looking at the bridge. Very often when we look at people and when we look at jobs, what we look at is the JD, which most of the time somebody has copied from somewhere and missed adapting it. Yes, there is a job that needs to be done, right? But again, same as in the private relationship, you need to fit together, right? Mm-hmm. Obviously, there's a lot of women and there's a lot of men. That still doesn't mean that everybody can do the job of being your husband. Sure. And especially in the startup scenarios, but also then in larger organizations, looking at the GM, it's again this thing of, is the bridge working? And a lot of that bridge kind of, in my experience, really is communication. And just because, you said before, you've brought somebody from the Big Four, still, even to these days with the team, when we kind of look for a general manager, and most of our clients are kind of SMEs. We don't work for BMW, we don't work for Daimler, they don't need us and we don't want them. With these SMEs, exactly what you just said before, if you bring in a guy who's kind of just used to very large units, he or she is used to very different work routines, very different departments they can count on. Also, they will know that you look for a document, somebody will be there to help you find it. If you're working for a company that's got 300 people globally, or smaller, or a little bit larger, a lot of the finding and the searching you will actually need to do yourself. And then when you found something, you know what it is? It's in German. So, it's these things, right? It's not kind of all laid out for you. And you need to be a person who wants that, right? And those people are out there. But you need to have fun, because otherwise you simply won't sustain. If you're in it for the title, then you don't run around searching stuff just for years.
So you talked about one challenge, which was finding the right person to start off the business in China for you, considering that you were abroad. I want you to touch on the clients and the issues you've had with clients. So I'm going to lead you directly. I'm going to be brash instead of just saying, Manfred, can you give another challenge? Can you talk a little bit about the challenges you've incurred with the clients that you are helping to find people for their subsidiaries in China? What sort of challenges have you had with that?
Let me touch upon 2 or 3 points. The first point, which is also being extremely highlighted now after the Shanghai lockdown, is the salary. If you are an SME, you've got, I don't know, maybe up to 2,000 people globally, maybe up to 5,000 people globally. There's still a lot of SMEs out there that kind of believe that it's 2010 and Shanghai is cheap. Shanghai is nowhere near from being cheap. It definitely isn't. Point A, point B, you pay peanuts, you get monkeys. They can also make noise. You can also put them in the driver's seat. If the plane starts going up and down and this and that, it's a result of that. To name that issue is very simple. To find a way of letting our clients digest that topic. Not just one person, but the key stakeholders and decision makers, to let them digest it and to, find the right tone and walk everybody to where they should be standing, at which point of time. That is a challenge. It's a challenge I still find intriguing, but it is
because it's still happening. It's still
getting tougher, especially now after the Shanghai lockdown. It's even for small SMEs. This morning I talked. Christina, you're still with me? Yeah. This morning I talked.
Yep, I'm here.
To a very kind of young electrician who directly applied at a client. So we kind of were forced into doing the interviews with him. And essentially that very young electrician said, look, the title says GM. I want to be GM, I started 1.2 million RMB. It's north of 150,000 euros.
Right.
And that is something, it's when you look kind of at the gap in numbers, when you look at the gap in absolute numbers and in a percentage perspective, that is where, you get the people kind of falling from their chairs in the European headquarters. And then part is, to warn them upfront. Part is to, get the defibrillators next to them before we tell them again. Part of them is, to bring them back into life and kind of to walk away, because I understand both sides. On one hand side, in Shanghai or in China, wages have been rising like mad in the last years. That is fact. So if we go to
and there's been, and the inflation has risen dramatically as well, year on year. It's not peanuts compared to other countries or cities.
If we go to candidates and we tell them, look, I've got a great job, but you'll only earn half. Why should they come?
Yeah, sure.
They shouldn't. On the other hand side, obviously also, if the China GM is earning double what kind of the Germany GM is earning, I also understand that part.
Yeah.
And, again, the bridge, this is where we come in kind of to find a way. And that is exciting because it's different in every organization, Do you have the owner being the general manager? Do you have the second generation? Do you have the child of the owner in there? Has the company just been bought by a private equity organization? It's so many different setups, and then is also, it depends a little bit. And to a certain degree, these things are not about the money really. It's also about the signals that you put, can we allow to let the China GM earn so much? It's also about that second and third thoughts, and not just about, being able to pay. So yeah, that money obviously is one topic. The second challenge is actually language. Again, a lot of our clients are great organizations, very good products from a European point of view. These companies, when you look at their homepage, are international. They've got something in the USA, they've got something in China, they've got something in Brazil. Very often, when you start talking to their team, they are very local. They're very local. Local to the point where a GM would say, English, who? It's tricky.
Right.
My team will not tell you, but who? It's tricky. And again, so obviously we both know, so that things can flow, that information can flow, that products can flow, we need communication, right? Now, on top of all of that, if you look at the German-speaking, the Austrian newspapers, there is a lot of, this kind of latent criticism on China. China this, China that, China nicks stuff here. It's there. I think in many people that is kind of at the very subconscious level. Some they can articulate it. They can say, look, I don't like it because, or they say, I've got my issues with this out of that reason. That is easy, that you can deal with. What is harder to deal with is where it kind of sits in the subconscious. And this is really that combined with the language kind of sometimes forces us, when we look again 3 years down the line, 5 years down the line, what do we think is the best for the client? It forces us to kind of actually find somebody who is a German-speaking European, or maybe even a German or an Austrian, and who is maybe in terms of what he can deliver and what he costs, not as good as a Chinese alternative, but still, because of the communication and because of that trust issue, still a better choice in the long run. And we need to put in that person, because with the other people, yes, if we look at the JD, is good. If I look at the candidate, is good. But once I start, looking at communication across these 8,000 kilometers, it's a disaster, because they don't give him anything. He can
Sure, and then the issue is obviously it leads to misunderstanding. It leads to actually not getting stuff done or decisions being made. Manfred and I actually had a call with a very interesting individual who was hired to relocate to Shanghai from Singapore, and her biggest issue is actually, most of the time the folks in Germany speak English, but it's more than just communication. It's more than just being able to speak to each other. It's also, do you even care about the Chinese market? Do you even realize the potential of this market? And I need help to make decisions. You can't just delegate everything to me. I don't even have the title of GM. I'm just BD manager or whatever else. You have to give me help. You have to support. So just like your bridge, Manfred, there have to be legs to the bridge, right? There has to be support on this bridge to be able to, in both directions, get stuff done and make decisions and whatnot.
Absolutely. And maybe kind of just the last point, and that is also sometimes really depending on the client and really depending on the situation. If you have got a lot of people wanting to decide who's the right man for China, it gets messy. It gets very messy. Because, we kind of, because of all my project management experience, and that kind of is going up to nearly 100 million euros with the Suning project in Nanjing. Because of all of these things, I'm approaching this thing very much from a project management perspective. Meaning, if a client says, look, we need somebody in there within 4 months, then I take that time frame serious. I don't consider my job done when I say, look, there you've got the right people in front of you. Now choose, she's there, just invite her for a drink. Our approach is, after you've done, after you've married, that's when our job's done. So after this person really starts, and even thinking a little bit longer. But what I'm trying to say really is that the more people you have involved in that decision-making process, the longer it takes. And because I can very much relate to the local Chinese side, where there is pressure, they're going at a higher speed. You do not let people understand what you think about them and whether you want to approach or whether you want to proceed or whether you want to make an offer, and you just wait and wait and wait. Their perception will be you are not interested.
Sure.
And you lose them. And then there you had your perfect candidate walking away because you were perfectly busy with yourselves. And that is then when you can start crying, because it takes a lot of time to find people. It takes a lot of time to present them in a way that everybody is sensing that this is really a good thing. And then when simply due to non-communication or miscommunication, you kind of let them walk away, that is really a pity. That it really is a pity.
So we've talked a bit about, and I love it because the topics are all fitting together really nicely in terms of what you do. So, I mean, the issues that you've really had for the last 12 years has really been around, not only having the right team of people supporting the business, but it's also the people who are the clients and dealing with their expectations and their wants and needs and desires. But let's talk on the positives. What have been your successes in the last 12 years?
Mm-hmm. I think when I go back to the early phases of the project management and kind of the being the firefighter, so to speak, I'm still in touch with most of the clients' project managers that I spent time with in China. Two of them have become extremely close friends because we've been there. We've shared the good and we've shared the bad times. Many of them have kind of referred me on because their perception was that, you've done a very good job. And I think what they kind of, all of them in a certain sense, iterated or reiterated was that I kind of worked on many, many different levels. So from technology to people, to structures, to finances, and simply trying to understand where do we have misfits and how do we need to realign. That was all very intense environments, all very high pressure environments, but we've managed to do a good job and also kind of build relationships that last until this day. And obviously also perform kind of on a financial level. In terms of the executive search cases these days, or kind of the global search business, there is different stories. If I kind of go to the global search brand, then it really is high-tech clients that we have started to help with in China. Then we kind of expanded and helped them in Germany, helped them in the USA, helping them now at the moment in Japan. It's kind of doing what we only did in the past in China, now kind of on a broader scale. Again, to simply find the right people and to build these bridges. And it's very fulfilling to see that, we can also do similar things in other geographies. Yes, there is similar learning kind of processes going on there. No, it does not work exactly the way we would like to have it at the first time. But yes, we pull through, and yes, we deliver in the end. So that is very fulfilling to see. It's also very fulfilling that, we have partners like you, and also other partners, like one of them is David, whom you know as well, who simply understand that we deliver. And there's, I guess, is a certain sense of proud in that. Also a certain responsibility that it's not about, that bill or the other bill. It's about that trust that we among us have developed, and knowing that, if that person trusts in you, then that's what really needs to be catered to. You not only want to, you need to deliver on that trust. I think that is something that I'm very, happy about. It creates a pressure, but in a very positive way. And I think it also makes us as in that kind of setup at the end of the day, so much more valuable for clients, because most of our clients don't realize that and don't appreciate that part enough, that if a certain somebody kind of, introduces a client, that client will be treated very much differently.
Sure.
As if that client kind of comes through a webinar.
Exactly.
That is so absolutely not the same thing.
Exactly.
It's very different.
Exactly. Yeah.
Um,
and where do you see the business going in the next 12 months? How do you see China developing in the next 12 months? I mean, in terms of what are the trends that you're seeing in terms of HR and people mobilization, etc.?
I'll take it from the big one and kind of then start breaking it down to the business. On the overall side, it feels like the walls are coming up again. It feels that be it China, be it other destinations, but also be it the small European destinations, that some of that liberalization and some of that globalization is kind of, is being reeled back, which I'm not happy about. I don't like to see that, and yet at the same time, I'm realistic enough to accept that, that is what seems to be happening or what is happening. Yeah. Coming kind of to China, I think the recent Shanghai lockdown has had a tremendous impact on people. I've seen it among my own team who said, look, white collar Chinese folks, very smart, very well educated, globally traveled. They say, look, either we move away from Shanghai or we leave China. That is something that is, to say it hurts me is not kind of the right thing, but it still, it stings. That's new. That is very new, that is, Shanghai was always the place to go, the place to be, the place
to
where
thrive for. It's, I mean, to strive for, right?
You have the Shanghai hukou, you have the Shanghai kind of, you have that secured for your next generation. You're set. All's good. And that is something that is that's simply heavy. That's simply heavy. When I kind of translate it closer to our business and kind of, supporting that European SME community in China, then at the moment is a very crucial kind of moment, because there is two sentences. Let's see if I can translate them into proper English. One sentence that a GM candidate said is, wives and kids are being sent home now. And the other sentence that a guy said is, we've already quit in our heads. Now we just, slowly go back to Europe, still kind of maintain the facade. And then when the time is right, then we kind of do the final quitting. Now, we both understand how these dynamics work. We both know that, it takes a while until headquarters sees what's going on, accepts what's going on, and then even a while later acts on what's going on.
Yeah.
So at the moment, we are really kind of in a bit of an alarm state in that sense, because simply so many expats are leaving, which leaves a lot of European organizations kind of with a damaged bridge, so to speak. And we are kind of, trying to find ways to repair it, be it through permanent candidates, be it through interim management solutions that at least they have somebody to do something, be it through quick strategy workshops where we simply, talk with our clients and try and map a strategy or ideas that, we can do something. Because in that sense, we both, I think, pretty much share the same attitude that even if it's closed, even if there was the Shanghai lockdown, the show must go on. You need to act. You might not like all the things you need to do, or you might not, but if China is relevant, and I've always been a very fervent believer, if it is not relevant and if it is not a strategic market, I think you should honestly ask yourself the question, do I need to be there? For most of our clients, however, it is a strategic market. There's somewhere in the vicinity of 20 to 30% global revenue coming from China, partially more of the global profit. So it's not a choice of saying, well, then we just close down shop. And this is kind of where at the moment I sense there is a lot of uncertainty, but also a lot of need for support. And this is kind of where we come in with what we already have and with the experience. And we also try and develop a couple of new ways and formats to cater to that need, because people simply, need a way forward.
It will be interesting to see in the next, at least for me, until the end of the year, how things transform, specifically in Shanghai, but in China in general. And let's hope, now the latest news as of early last week was that foreigners who are looking to relocate to China don't need PU letters anymore, which is great news. And consulates and embassies are verifying that they don't need that as a part of the document list. So let's hope that this is a good sign that things are moving in the right direction, as Shanghai is slowly opening up. But let's see. So just to finish off, Manfred, I think it would be interesting to highlight to people how we work together. This is not a typical China experts interview series where I'm interviewing my clients. This is actually talking to a strategic partner of mine who brings added value to my clients by offering a solution that I don't offer. And I think it's the reverse for Manfred as well. It's bringing me in as a strategic partner where I provide an added value to services Manfred doesn't provide. But I think it'd be interesting to highlight potentially some scenarios, client scenarios where we've worked on together, how we can bring our services together in terms of offering a package or a solution or something.
Absolutely. Like that. Let me first start off kind of with with something that's more related to you as a person, Christina. I think what I always enjoyed about you, and especially about the collaboration with you, again, if we do kind of come in with clients and share them with you, then you've always brought this down-to-earth approach, looking at what needs to be done, doing it, executing at an extremely high level, and with a very high consistency. And I think that is something that is simply rare to find among those that offer services for China. That is the first thing. The second thing is also, if any of you, either already clients of Christina or my clients or potential future clients, do talk to Christina about finances, do talk to Christina about how is my setup, because this is where Christina and her team are offering a lot of value, and also kind of go much beyond what kind of your normal outsourcing or bookkeeping service would do. Having said that, kind of coming to very specific scenarios, I mentioned before that, finding that first man in China. Very often that first man or woman is a salesperson. You want a business development or a sales role. In essence, from my perspective, Christina is providing the structure and then again, everything finance related. So Christina can help you with setting up that entity. Christina can help you with then hiring that person. We are the ones who find that person. Christina is also having a very elegant solution where you don't need to set up that entity and you can hire that person with her organization. That again, I think, is, if you want to enter China, it's also about speed and it's about the right partners, right? I'm all good if you set up that entity and if it makes sense and if it makes strategic sense and you need it. But I'm against, just waiting 12 months because you've picked the wrong partner to then set it up in a very bad way, in a very slow way, and in a very kind of, just just didn't have the right start. And this is where, Christina and me together developed this way where we find that salesperson. It's been hired through Christina's organization in Shanghai. And then later on, Christina can help you to set up the whole organization. Then we can increase on the sales team and hire more. That would be one of the first kind of examples where we just executed. And actually on the last one where we executed, instead of hiring just one person, our client did actually hire two people. One person in Shanghai and one in Changsha, because this is where part of his target segment is sitting. Back to you, Christina.
So no, I mean, that's exactly right. I mean, if I would say, let me break it down maybe into three different scenarios. The first scenario is that, Manfred has a client who is looking to hire people. They don't want to set up an entity yet. They're not ready for the commitment, but they need somebody on the ground. They can use our employer of record service easily for that. The second scenario is they want to set up an entity. They have the intention to set up an entity, but they're doing it simultaneously as finding somebody. And potentially that entity is not yet set up. So they need an intermediary to hire that person until it is set up. Or the third is similarly my clients who are looking to expand their headcount in different types of divisions, not just, so I just want to verify also, Manfred doesn't just do sales. Could be that they're looking to hire data analysts. They're looking to hire marketing managers, brand managers. They're looking to hire GMs. They're looking to hire production operation managers. It could be a whole variety of different roles. But again, everybody has their expertise, right? That's the whole point of this interview series. So mine is more in corporate services, administration. Manfred's is in people. And that's how we actually sync together and collaborate then on projects where we try to market it also as a solution, right? You might be working with two providers, but it's a solution that we're offering as a one-stop package concept.
And I think that one-stop package concept always has a certain beauty. However, in China, especially if you're new, you will find it being really hard to act as the integrator if you don't know what you need to pay attention to. Right. And I think that is also in the past, and I had and I still have that model also on different levels, but I appreciate it very, very much with Christina. We want that in the end, it works, it flows together. Both of us kind of have that same mindset that it's not just about the billing, it is about having an impact, and it's about making sure that it works. And again, if you're new, and even if you've been there and if you had 15 business trips to China, I'd still bet that it's tricky to do kind of an integration without a lot of headache and without an awful lot of reading, verifying, vetting, and so on and so forth. And I think this is also kind of our personal habit, I guess. Christina's at mine, but one important thing, and maybe you need to cut this out, but I still think we can leave it in. Christina is also on a very, very exclusive basis, sometimes saying yes to being on the board of directors. If you can get her to do that, you're very lucky. You should.
Thank you, Manfred. He likes pinpointing that point.
It's true, isn't it?
Yes.
Isn't it?
Yeah. Well, again, it's our services are very similar in terms of bridge building. So, if Manfred could get me on some of his clients' boards, I think he would try to push for it as well. Again, just simply to get decisions made, right? I think one of the biggest problems we face is getting clients to make good decisions in the manner of being in a fast-paced market like China. So not waiting around.
And also I think, to be fair, the reason why we have that challenge is because China and all that comes with it, and being successful in that market is a very complex thing. I like that complexity. It's part of my DNA to kind of take that complexity and boil it down into simplicity. But it's a very complex thing, and that is why I think Christina.
It's funny you say that, because I don't call China complex anymore.
How do you call it?
For me, it's my husband came up with this term of phrase. It is about processes and methodology. If you can figure out the process of China and you can figure out its methodology, actually China is not complex. It's quite easy. And obviously it comes with experience. I just want to say.
Yes and no. After 20 years, we can say that. But
yeah, I can say it after 20 years. I think I deserve the right to say it.
Fair enough. It's fair enough. But again, I go back to the bridge, right? And the thing is, it's not just about that one end and about you or me or one of the clients, folks, understanding that one end. It's kind of the whole dynamics. Of
course.
That comes into it. And this is where also, in terms of the decision making, in terms of making the right decision or backtracking, where
this is where the point comes in. You have your right-hand person in Ru in China, and I've got my right-hand person as well in China, which just aids in facilitating that bridge, right? You need the right people to want to accompany you on this journey.
Oh, absolutely.
And who are motivated, excited, and are, they're building the momentum for you as well, right? To succeed. If I didn't have that, I wouldn't be saying with pride that it's not complex. Their systems and their processes, right? So yeah. Well, Manfred, let's leave it there. I mean, the goal is obviously in 6 months to 1 year to see how business has developed in this very interesting period of time we're living in China with COVID, the border barriers, the lockdowns, the current war that's occurring. I think everybody is striving to understand where the business is going. I think just to highlight one thing Manfred and I spoke about prior to recording today was the fact that, there is a hesitation from people about what to do in China, but no company yet that is in China is actually leaving China. The people might be, but the company itself has no intention of leaving, and people are just waiting for the bounce back, right? For the regrowth.
I think it really is quite simple. You cannot talk or discuss away the relevance within the global community of China. Yes. You can dislike certain things that happen there. You can have very strong opinions about things, but if you really kind of in a logical way try to argument that you are that exception that does not need to have a strong sales entity in China or a local unit to cater to the local market, then I'd be really interested in talking with you to understand the facts, if that is the statement there.
Right. Well, Manfred, thank you for popping in. Thanks for joining. Thanks for sharing your story.
Thank you so much for having me. Next time we should, add having a bit of a drink during the.
We will. We'll add a glass of wine instead of a cup of tea, a frozen cup of tea.
I'm sticking with water today.
And thanks everyone for listening in, joining in, and I hope this video has helped in giving you a bit of inspiration, motivation, and developing your guanxi in China in terms of who you should be partnering with, adding somebody to your China ecosystem, right? In terms of network.
By all means, do reach out. Do reach out to Christina. Do reach out to myself. We're happy to speak with you and curious to hear your story.
Thanks, everyone. Take care and goodbye.
Goodbye.